If you believe in the unseen operatives guarding this nation from the shadows, hit subscribe. This mission is for you. July 12, 2011, Quetta, Pakistan. When the CIA inserted him into Quetta, there were no weapons, no escorts, and no official record of entry. The operative, under the alias Farid Khan, arrived as a mid-level supplier dealing in diesel barrels, lubricants, and agricultural chemicals. His cover story fit the region's smuggling economy: unremarkable, profitable, and forgettable. That was the point. 6 months of observation preceded his first contact. The agency had identified Quetta as a logistics hub for the Taliban shadow network, a city where information and contraband moved faster than law enforcement. Within that maze of warehouses and unregistered freight companies, safehouses operated as transit nodes. Cash and coded ledgers moved through them, disguised as fertilizer shipments and auto parts. The operative's assignment was clear: map those nodes, trace their couriers, and identify the command link connecting Helmand to Peshawar. Every interaction was calculated. He spoke Pashto with a Karachi accent, bargained with measured hesitation, and never carried a phone. His watch, a modified field model, transmitted haptic Morse pulses to a buried receiver near Spin Boldak, routing through a low-frequency relay disguised as an irrigation sensor. No one questioned an irrigation sensor in a desert. By the 3rd month, the network accepted him. Local traders began routing convoys through his name. Farid's trucks became shorthand for reliable movement. He paid bribes on time, undercharged the right people, and refused attention. The Taliban's quartermasters noticed. When a convoy carrying ammonium nitrate crossed the Chiman border uninspected, his name was added to a courier list as a verified logistics contact. That list was his doorway. Each night, he logged routes by hand in a composition notebook. The pages were written in Urdu but encoded using a substitution pattern derived from coordinates of U.S. air bases, a cipher only Langley's analytical cell could reverse. The book was hidden beneath a false floorboard in his rented flat above a bakery. The smell of yeast masked the scent of solvent and glue used for document concealment. Intelligence came slow. Through months of repetition, diesel manifests, warehouse receipts, freight permits, patterns emerged. Certain shipments always traveled on odd-numbered days. Others used identical driver aliases across borders. 3 properties within Quetta were repeatedly referenced as night rest locations. He verified 2 by visual confirmation, both rented under the same tribal guarantor. The 3rd burned before he could reach it. Langley flagged the loss as collateral. The operative didn't respond. In his coded transmissions, he replaced acknowledgement signals with silence, a sign he was moving deeper, beyond scheduled reporting windows. By late September, his presence in Quetta's underworld was normalized. No one saw the American. They saw Farid Khan, a quiet trader with precise books and no family. Inside that anonymity, he became what the agency required: a ghost mapping the enemy's invisible architecture, one ledger at a time. The operative's access in Quetta advanced from transactional to observational. He did not exfiltrate or occupy command nodes. He converted peripheral trust into persistent surveillance. Tactics favored concealment over contact, physical proxies, environmental sensors, and human terrain mapping, rather than aggressive human runs that risked exposure. Primary insertion method into safehouses was logistical: supply deliveries, inventory checks, and fuel accounting. These legitimate movements provided unsuspicious windows for placing passive monitoring devices. The operative used 3 device classes: mechanical proximity tags, micro RFID units affixed to ceiling joists and generator housings. No power source required. Tags recorded azimuthal proximity when paired with a buried reader carried in a maintenance crate during routine visits. Acoustic vibration loggers, sealed in concrete voids near door thresholds to register entries/exits based on footstep signatures. Data dense but locally stored. Retrieval occurred during scheduled inventory sweeps. Thermal exposure markers, chemically treated strips that altered reflectance after sustained human presence. Useful where electronics were prohibited. Device placement protocols accounted for local countermeasures. The operative never installed anything in living quarters. Devices were hidden in infrastructure: exhaust vents, water tanks, under corrugated roofing. Placement was timed to correspond with known convoy windows identified in Phase 1. Data returns were incremental and methodical. Passive RFID ping logs revealed 3 safehouses in Quetta's sector, repeatedly used as courier rest stops between 0200 to 0430 hours on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. Acoustic profiles confirmed the presence of 1 to 4 individuals during these windows. Thermal markers correlated with diesel-powered engine idling consistent with Hilux-class transporter vehicles. Visual confirmation tasks used low-exposure observation. The operative staged as an inventory controller in adjacent warehouses and used night vision optics from roof lines to capture silhouette and vehicle signatures. Vehicles were consistently white Hilux pickups. License plates were modified using removable plates or local forgery cycles, often swapped every 7 to 10 days. Drivers used identical aliases across multiple shipments. Aliases matched ledger entries obtained earlier. Significant intercept. Proximity sniffers detected a local pattern of short-range wireless handshakes between feature phones. The handshakes occurred in intervals under 10 seconds and contained small bursts of binary data. These exchanges occurred during courier handoffs and appear to serve as ledger key verification, a local offline peer-to-peer authentication method. Field analysis flagged this as a rudimentary, opportunistic communications protocol, later designated swarm cipher. Further analysis showed couriers favored analog redundancy. Physical ledgers were photographed on paper and encoded with simple steganographic marks, ledger headers with marginal ink smudges representing routing nodes. Travelers couriered microfilm strips sealed in cigarette tubes as a backup. Operational constraints. One safe house was destroyed by fire before full signal retrieval. The operative's acoustic logs provided the last trace. Langley's assessment recorded 2 local assets later identified as compromised in connection with the burn. Tradecraft adjustment followed. Move away from any pattern requiring repeated device visits. Increase reliance on single-visit, high-yield placements, and human-coded dead drops. Tactical outcome. 3 safe houses verified, 1 confirmed destroyed. Swarm cipher protocol identified as a secondary communications vector between couriers. Intelligence vector validated for escalation to Phase 3. Network deception and counter-communications exploitation. At 2134Z, communication with Farid Khan ceased. The low-frequency relay embedded in the spin Boldak irrigation unit went silent after transmitting a single incomplete burst, /7 or /C. No acknowledgement followed. The Quetta station logged it as a transient drop until the silence extended past the 48-hour threshold. 3 separate signals intelligence nodes along the border simultaneously intercepted encrypted Taliban radio chatter, referencing an infidel in the chain. The language indicated discovery, not suspicion. Within hours, courier networks across Delta and Echo sectors froze. Trucks rerouted south. Cell activity spiked, then went dark. Langley prepared an extraction directive under Emergency Protocol Alpha 6, but the Kabul station chief delayed it. The directive margin carried his handwritten note. No exfil confirmation. To Sunapol. He's not finished. On the 4th night, an analog transmission appeared on shortwave frequency 9.375 MHz, disguised as an Afghan folk broadcast. The melody contained amplitude modulation spelling a 5-character code, V4H1X. Authentication matched the operative's known cipher. Status: alive. Autonomous. Continuing mission. During blackout, he had shifted to a contingency phase not logged in his operation plan. Infiltration was no longer about collection. It was now deception. The operative reconfigured his role within the Taliban supply apparatus, quietly feeding falsified manifests into the courier chain. Each doctored route redirected Taliban shipments toward controlled corridors under drone and ISR watch. To maintain credibility, he alternated real and false manifests, ensuring the network's internal audits never detected the pattern. Every successful decoy forced the Taliban to waste fuel, manpower, and time. Each lost convoy became an intelligence goldmine. His only physical communication with Langley came through non-electronic means. Coordinates etched in diesel drums returned from Helmand to Karachi. They contained embedded routing metadata readable under ultraviolet. Every recovered barrel allowed the agency to triangulate convoy shifts with 96% accuracy. Quetta station analysts flagged the results as unprecedented manipulation of enemy logistics using zero-trace technology. Internal memo excerpt. Subject has inverted the target system. He is now the invisible node directing their own infrastructure. For 37 days, the Taliban unknowingly followed routes designed by a man they thought was one of their own. But with deception came risk. Internal Taliban counterintelligence began tracking ledger inconsistencies. 2 quartermasters were executed. Surveillance intensified. A field courier identified as Zahir, one of the operative's earliest intermediaries, disappeared. Langley analysts concluded exposure probability had risen beyond operational tolerance. An emergency extraction request was drafted, but not approved. The final line in the transmission log before the relay went dark again read, "Control is temporary. Ghost state initiated. Mission status officially reclassified to non-official autonomous continuation." When contact broke for the second time, Langley assumed termination. The Quetta ring was collapsing under internal purges, and every known courier route was on lockdown. Within 24 hours, the Taliban burned 3 safe houses and suspended all cross-border shipments. The agency marked Farid Khan, alias of the embedded CIA operative, as presumed Quetta. They were wrong. In reality, he had crossed the frontier using one of the very convoys he'd falsified weeks earlier, a tanker column hauling diesel and narcotics to Lashkar-Gah. Hidden among the drivers, he carried no electronics, no weapons, and no proof of identity. For the first time since insertion, he existed entirely off-book. The operative established himself as a logistics controller inside a Helmand warehouse compound used for Taliban fuel reserves. His cover story, a displaced trader from Chuman seeking protection in exchange for accounting skills. Verification took 2 days, acceptance took 1 honest repair of a faulty generator. Trust was incremental, the same tradecraft that had served him before. This was the ghost phase, a contingency tier reserved for field assets capable of operating without uplink or command. The objective was simple: survive, observe, and exfiltrate only when the network ceased to function. He never transmitted. Instead, he recorded. Each night, he etched symbols into strips of cloth hidden inside fuel hoses. These coded lists contained courier initials, transfer times, and shipment routes. During maintenance cycles, he disposed of the marked hoses through routine waste convoys, which the agency later intercepted unknowingly, weeks after the data had traveled halfway to Karachi. Over 6 weeks, the operative mapped the Taliban's internal economic skeleton: 9 active couriers, 3 regional financial nodes, and 1 external satellite phone relay connecting Helmand's finance head to a contact in Karachi's Sorabgah district. When CIA analysts later decrypted those logs, the number tied directly to a Dubai-based account moving approximately $1.6 million monthly through Hawala channels. In the field, the operative maintained anonymity through behavior control. He prayed when others did. He complained about fuel shortages. He never initiated conversation, only responded. Surveillance was conducted visually, memorized, and transferred through object substitution, a spoon slightly bent to indicate new arrivals, an unlatched window to signal a cleared cache. Reports reconstructed after the mission show he identified multiple insurgent financial routes without ever drawing a weapon. By acting as the bookkeeper they needed, he dismantled the supply chain that sustained them. Langley's analysts later wrote in the file margin, "He built no network. He became one." When the Taliban began suspecting infiltration again, Farid Khan disappeared overnight. The warehouse logs showed he'd signed off on a fuel delivery to Garesh, but no convoy ever arrived. Officially, no trace of him was recovered. Unofficially, his coded markings continued to appear on intercepted shipments for another 7 weeks. He was no longer a man inside the system. He was the system's ghost. After 52 days of silence, a coded phrase surfaced on a dormant CIA analog relay in Kandahar. No viable exfil. Asset proximity high. Request optical confirmation only. The phrase bore the signature of Farid Khan, an operative presumed dead for nearly 2 months. Signal triangulation placed the origin near a fuel depot east of Lashkar-Gah. ISR drones were redirected from ongoing Overwatch operations. At 0300Z, satellite feed identified a compound with 4 heat signatures, 3 active, 1 stationary. 2 figures carried sidearms. 1 sat at a table, 1 lay unmoving. Thermal analysis indicated a sudden bloom, small arms discharge, followed by loss of all heat traces. The feed cut to static seconds later, likely due to localized jamming. Ground teams were ordered to stand by. 48 hours later, a joint NATO-CIA recovery element reached the site. The compound had been torched. Ash and twisted steel marked the spot where ledgers and communication devices had been kept. Beneath a half-buried oil drum, they found fragments of a burned notebook and a sealed metal cylinder. Inside the cylinder, partially legible ledgers with numeric sequences matching known Hawala transfer codes. A melted RFID tag similar to those used during Phase 2. A fabric scrap with etched coordinates, later matching a secondary Taliban depot near Musakala. No body. No identification. Analysis confirmed the ledgers contained 63 unique account holders linked to Taliban logistics, paymasters, and supply contractors. Cross-referencing with financial databases and drone surveillance led to 47 successful neutralizations over the next 8 months. Excerpt from the Langley after-action brief. The recovered data indicates the operative maintained active infiltration status until the final transmission window. Behavioral modeling suggests self-detonation of the asset's position was intentional, a countermeasure to protect embedded intelligence traces. Objective completion probability, 93%. Operative survival probability, 12%. Satellite records from 72 hours post-incident showed irregular thermal echoes 1.8 kilometers west of the burn site, faint movement resembling a single figure traveling north along the Helmand riverbank. Tracking ceased at dawn. Analysts couldn't confirm identity. Forensic residue from the metal cylinder revealed fingerprints partially matching those taken from Farid Khan's original forged documents. The classification board concluded possible survival, but no retrieval attempt followed. Langley's file on Operation Ghost Wire was sealed on January 5, 2012 under declassified at 50-year status. The internal summary read, asset dissolved within hostile network structure. Operational yield exceeds insertion cost by 300%. Recommend no replication, unrepeatable conditions. Within the Director of Operations, one phrase circulated in closed briefings. He exited as he entered, unannounced, undocumented, and indispensable. In January 2022, during a scheduled digital migration of archival holdings related to post-9/11 covert operations, a sealed container marked Operation Ghost Wire / Do Not Replicate was located in Storage Vault 7D. The box contained deteriorated microfilm, 2 metallic dog tags with no serial numbers, and a binder labeled Farid Helmand Logistics Cell. The material was slated for destruction until an analyst recognized the reference code from a defunct counterinsurgency database. Upon review, the Declassification Committee initiated a controlled evaluation. What emerged was not a mission record. It was a reconstruction of an operation that officially never existed. The first document inside was a field summary dated December 2011 and signed. It contained the following line. The mission completed itself. I just stopped being visible. Subsequent analysis confirmed this was the operative's handwriting. The declassified portions revealed how a single asset dismantled an insurgent finance and logistics grid without active communication or direct support. The ledger fragments retrieved from Lashkar-Gah corresponded to 63 accounts. 47 were neutralized via drone strikes, arrests, or funding seizures. The remaining 16 were never found, suggesting the network either restructured or buried itself under new aliases. Satellite telemetry from 2012 recorded faint, recurring signal bursts along the Helmand River using the same frequency modulation patterns as the operative's earlier transmissions, short, rhythmic, and coded as coordinates. Analysts believe they might represent exfil beacons or misdirection loops. The signals ended abruptly in mid-March. By 2015, the operation's tactical lessons were incorporated into the agency's silent vector protocol, an infiltration doctrine based on zero-signal endurance, behavioral integration, and network inversion. It trained operatives not to infiltrate systems but to become them. An internal review board, chaired by Deputy Director Reynolds, reevaluated the mission's cost. His closing statement read, "He didn't fail extraction. He chose disappearance as operational security. No one can compromise a man who no longer exists." To this day, no official confirmation of the operative's death or recovery exists. His alias appears in regional security chatter as a myth, the foreign traitor who never died. Taliban detainees have referenced him as the Whisperer of Quetta, a figure who made our ledgers bleed. In 2022, a final annotation was added to the file before reclassification. Do not reassign codename Farid Khan. The ghost remains active. If this story made you proud to stand for something bigger than yourself, leave a like and comment where you're watching from. Real heroes don't wear capes, they wear clearance. In the silence of forgotten missions, Loyalty is the last frequency still transmitting.